Greetings everyone, it's Manuel Quintana. I'm just doing a follow-up video blog from the webinar recently done about Power BI visualizations. There's lots of questions submitted, so I wanted to put a couple of the good ones down here that we could discuss. We could show some neat things. And for those of you who actually haven't seen that webinar, I'd probably recommend seeing that first, and then this will make a little more sense. But let's dive right in. Let's take a look. What's the first question that I thought was pretty neat? By the way, all the questions were fantastic. They're just some that lend themselves more aptly to share with a larger group. If you don't see your question here, it's only because it was a bit more specific to probably a use case or your specific needs, and those I'll be addressing just personally there. So don't think I forgot about you. But this first question I really liked. I really enjoyed. It's really neat when they can make certain applications and programs accessible to everybody and leverage these features. So, is there a color set for people with color blindness? And I actually didn't know the answer for this initially, but upon a little bit of research, there is a preview item that does allow for some capabilities in this realm. So this is going to allow me to actually tackle two things. One, that I promised in the webinar, how does one go about enabling preview features inside of Power BI Desktop? And two, addressing this specific question. So let's dive right in. Here we are, back in familiar territory, the same exact project we worked on when we were doing the webinar. Now there's a tile in here, and those for those quick eyes might note it's a tile that an option that I have in the above ribbon that you might not, and that's going to be this theme option. So this is what we're going to talk about in relation to colorblind friendliness. Now, the article I found, which is pretty neat, and I'll include this link, is just here. It's on the community page for Power BI itself, and we can see it's talking and giving some examples. This is actually a Power BI. This is an embedded report right here, so you can interact with this. But it's more about the theming. And you can see how they talk about this, and specifically how you can make these and do color palettes. And the reason is, the only way to achieve this is by importing a JSON file. So that is a format type, an extension .json, which we can see we can download this actual theme that we're seeing here, the file itself, which I've already downloaded. But when you go to that theme and you ask to import, that is the file type it will be looking for. So as a small little additional element that I'm adding in, here's a website that's pretty neat where you can actually go through and it'll have a color wheel and you can dictate, and once you get the color theming that you're looking for, it'll actually create that JSON file for you. Once again, I'll include that as well. But let's take a look how we implement this, right? Back into Power BI. I'm going to switch themes. I'm going to import a theme, and we're going to grab the one that we just saw from that website. So it's going to bring up the File Explorer here. Let's select this. And there we are. We have our theming set and in place. So a really quick and easy way to allow for this. Now there's not any other features that extend beyond this, but is this a really nice thing? As I mentioned, it's in preview mode, and we can go right back. So how did I enable this? This is going to be actually for anything in preview. So those items that we talked about in the actual webinar, the one that was the ArcGIS, the two different maps, the preview mode for the table and the matrix visuals, they're just here. We're going to hit File, Options and Settings, Options, and we're going to see there's a choice here for preview features. And whatever you want, you simply indicate with a checkbox and hit OK. This will require you to restart the application itself, and then it will be available. So the one that we are talking about here is this one, Custom Report Themes. And these are the additional ones that we did in the webinar. So those additional map ones, they're indicated here. And as you can see, table and matrix visual also included. So this is how you would enable that. So boom, two questions right there, even though there's really just one asked. The next item that we had in the list of questions here, we're going to see is, can the temperature values used in the legend be changed from alpha order? And I found this one really interesting only because there was actually quite a few of you that this question was posed. I thought it was, I didn't realize it was going to be so much of an eyesore. And I mean that in the kindest complimentary way. But this is a fantastic question because absolutely, the answer is yes. And it's really neat how you can achieve this. And this is where we're going to go into some DAX. So let's go back in. Let's find the visual that we used in which this was part of it. So here we are. We see our cold, cool, hot, and warm. not in the order we like. It's doing that because of how it's listed alphabetically here. So we want to change this. Of course, we want to basically just swap hot and warm. That's the key. We know that that column, if we select on this, is the temperature range column that's found in the temperature range table just here. Well, we need in some way, shape, or form for this to be ordered in a different fashion. One thing, and this first piece might be new already, but if we were to select the column in question, go to the modeling ribbon, we're going to see there's an option to sort by a column. Of course, by default, everything is sorted on itself, its own column, but we can choose to have it sorted by another, which is the first piece of this, but the second is we don't actually have something to filter it by. So in this case, we're actually going to create a new column and use a DAX expression to get a value here. So if I go in, we're going to simply hit this option to create a new column. And then here, we're going to see that we have this capability of inputting some information. So this is where we would input the name of the column itself, as well as the DAX expression that we're going to leverage. Now I'm going to, real quick, just give this temperature sort order. Okay, so we've got that. It is going to be using the if expression. So I'm not going to actually do it just yet, because I actually like, when achieving this and when doing this, I always like to first go into the data view itself here, so we can see what we have available to use, and actually when the expression is done, we're going to see the outcome of it. So in here, we're going to use actually the average temperature column here within the expression. Okay, and what we're going to be doing is leveraging that to get a value, an ordinal value here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, to our hot colds. So the expression. If we look here, I'm actually going to populate this, but we've got the if expression where we're taking the average temperature, and I'm saying when that is greater than or equal to 70, then we're going to give it a value of 4. If it isn't greater than or equal to 70, then we're going to do another if statement here. 55, that's going to be 3 for our warm. Then we go down the list to 2 for our cool. And then finally, if none of those criteria are met, it's going to be 1 as in cold. So we can see when we now validate this expression, my sort order column now is going to be populated with some values. So now we've got this. So what we can do is we can revert back to that other option, where we can go to temperature range. We're going to sort by, and actually I'm going to go back to the visual screen so we can see this actually happen. We're going to go ahead, let me select this, temperature range. We're going to sort by, temperature sort order, and in a few seconds, let's wait for it, there we go. I know this probably makes everyone so much happy. Obviously, there's some coloration items here I tinkered with, so cool and warm, a little too near each other. So I'm actually, just for the sake of this, we're gonna, if we remember, we're gonna go to data colors. I'm gonna go with the deep blue here. We're gonna there. We're gonna go here, and that order. So there we go, just an example, and notice that now I did this at a column level, so all of the other visuals, anywhere where this was used in the legend, the ordering has been changed. So hopefully that was pretty neat, pretty helpful. The next question that we have here, bring this up, it's going to be, is Power BI Desktop available for Mac users? I get that this is actually quite often asked, and the very literal answer to this is no for the Power BI Desktop. But, of course, as Mac users, you can have dual operating systems and boot in Windows. So in that case, then you can, yes, use Power BI Desktop on a Mac, but you're not using iOS, so that's kind of odd. But I'm going to stick to the idea that I'm a Mac user and I have iOS. What can I do if I'm in that situation? Well, really, the only thing that's available to a user is you can actually leverage the Power BI Desktop service. So this is something, if you have an account created with Microsoft, it's a work account, that you can actually go to your cloud. So right here, I have a cloud service available to me. So this is eventually where I deploy and publish these reports out to, so I can share this with the world. But something that can be done here, if we go and visit this, is that you can see in my workspace I have a couple of choices, and namely, there's at the very bottom this choice to get data. So you have this capability of actually bringing data in right through this service. So of course I'm on Mac, I can just go to this website and achieve this. There are limitations though. It's not going to give you the same amount of options for importing data. You can see on the right hand side, it's very limited. But you can. I just wanted to show this as an example, and then once that data set is brought in, as you can see, we actually have this interface where we can start dragging in visuals and dragging in columns. So you can actually create a report and, in a sense, grab in some data sets right here on the website. So it does give you, this is one way that you can do it, but really Power BI Desktop is going to give you a far bigger range. So Windows is going to really be the operating system in question here. The next question. The actual literal question here, just in case, it was, is this available for Canada? And I assume we're talking about the geographical data. A couple different ways I interpreted this question, but if we go back to that visual space here, if I go back to where we're looking at maps, there's going to be a couple choices here, right? One, I did not represent one of the custom maps. So this map just here, this one known as the shape map, actually, I'm going to bring this in real quick. When we look at the options here, you actually have a capability, just waiting while this loads up here, you can actually modify an option for what is that shape going to be. So once you populate this with data, let me actually bring this up here. You can see here under, let me just bring in like city and state here real quick. City, state. So we can see the shape itself now that there's data in here. It's just automatically grabbing US. Now there are options here. We can see that I can switch this over to a couple different choices. So this one does give you this availability to change maps. Obviously, all the rest of the maps in relation to that question, is this available for Canada? If the data contains points, geographical points for Canada, as you can see in my example, it's going to show readily available. But in this one in particular, this is the preview one, we can actually go ahead and specify what map you want to be displayed here. And actually, you can actually add in, once again, a JSON file that contains map keys. It's a little different, so you always want to look here what it's looking for information, but you can actually add in and point to a JSON file and populate a very specific element. So that's one way to answer that question. Another one that I wanted to show, though, was with ArcGIS. It seemed to be a pretty popular one. When we go into that edit area, there were some elements we were talking about, these reference layers. And you can see I actually have something already populated. Where I went for this, reference layer, we know that there's a whole bunch of pre-populated elements here in regards to US features, which we saw we were using. I was showing this one, but the one now that I'm using, by going to ArcGIS option, just this little toggle, I can now go here, type in Canada, and here's a bunch of other reference layers that you can incorporate. This one, I was doing provinces and territories, but as we can see now, when we click and choose one of these, it gives us some nice information. So there's a lot in this database, so it's successful. The reference layers is, you can definitely go beyond what's just pre-populated here, but another way we can achieve this. So I think that's what the question was looking for. The next one, let's bring this up. We have here the option for, is there a way, any way, to input red, green arrows in the matrix cells to go with the conditional formatting? So there's not actually a very straightforward and easy way to just add these arrows, right? If you wanted to add a red down or a green up, it should be noted, though, that when we talk about the preview version of the matrix, there are some options. There was a question about disabling these subtotals and just having grand. Just so you, a quick look, if we go ahead and turn this to the preview, since there's a hierarchy, notice the subtitles are gone, but my grand total still exists. I still have this option to remove the column level or the row level grand totals, but only the subtitles will only appear once that hierarchy is presented. So when I expand this out, we're going to see that's when it. So that's kind of a neat thing. If you did want to control where those subtotals are appearing or not. But there isn't a really easy way to add those little arrows in that we're talking about here. So if we just had like a little up, so it's up over here, maybe just a green up arrow. But in a more advanced way, this is pretty interesting. There's a blog here by a gentleman by the name of Chris Webb, and specifically he talks about a DAX function, Unichar. So this capability of leveraging characters, Unicode characters that'll be displayed inside these visuals. And this is pretty neat. I haven't addressed this or done this myself. Definitely something I may do a future blog on. But you'll notice we go down in some of these examples. A pizza restaurant with a score. Well, he's using this Unichar 9733, and he gives all the links here where these references are, how you can look this up. But you can see how it's presented now. So you can see it gives us these filled and unfilled stars. Pretty neat. You can go through and get this little toggle box and indicate, when we're going to be available for the week. So pretty interesting, and there is a ton of characters on this. So something I would highly recommend to look into. It's very different, very unique, but it possibly could be that answer that you were looking for there. Another one we have, and the last one here, does relate to what we covered in that question about the legend reorganizing, since we used some DAX there. We had a question here: what training do you have available to increase proficiency in DAX and custom measures? Well, fantastic question. You can see the little guy snuck here in the down right. His name is Mitchell Pearson. He's actually one of the trainers here, and he is part of the team, and he actually is responsible for creating one of our newest courses on our on-demand training platform. And on that platform, we just added Intro to DAX. So a new class, really fun-filled, and just as a small tidbit, the webinar we did, that was actually a drop in the bucket of our actual full-on Power BI desktop class, which we can see here. It takes us A to Z. We're talking about importing the data model itself, visualizations, interactivity, and all the way through to the publishing out and how you can use the Power BI service. And you can see we have a whole section that is on Power BI custom visuals. So beyond the ones that are simply available in our Power BI desktop that we saw, and beyond even the preview ones, there are user-created and Microsoft team created custom visuals. 70 plus at least, and we go through. Devin Knight is responsible for that. He's going through tons of them. It's usually a weekly update here. But here's our introduction to DAX. Just a quick sneak peek at some of the categories so you can see what's going to be involved in this. But we've got tons of content, follow-up material so that you can practice, and then we are working on creating an advanced DAX class. So a fantastic option here. I'll make sure to include a link to where you can actually get a trial. But this is a great interface for a platform for just upping your learning. And we'll list out all the different, we have tons of classes too, not just in regards to BI. Well, hopefully this answers, hopefully these questions that I presented and the answers that I gave were helpful, pretty neat. I appreciate all of the feedback that I have received. And as I mentioned, I'll be being a little more active in regards to this on my blog. So there should be more posts that you should look forward to. Thanks again and have a great day.